Hello my dear friends, and welcome back to another Star Wars video. It is I coming at you once again, your favourite galactic hostess, Star Wars Meg, and today we actually have a very interesting piece of news. This update centers around the overall state of the Star Wars franchise, but from the perspective of gaming. I also have a very special guest we'll bring in just a moment, but first of all my friends, let's look at the headline. The CEO of Ubisoft seems to think that Star Wars is dead, and he used the excuse as the main reason why Star Wars Outlaws flopped. Last year's big Star Wars game, which didn't sell as well as they would have hoped. And there were many reasons for this. Fan frustration with Ubisoft as a company, their recent track record with microtransactions, and overall transparency issues. Not to mention, while Star Wars Outlaws was fun, it was pretty mid and didn't live up to the hype. Certainly not enough to justify $70 on opening day for the standard edition, and that's not even taking into account the gold edition and the ultimate edition. They were really taking the mickey with these prices, and I'm someone who played some of the game and it was fine. I had a good time with some of the Easter eggs and some of the references, but come on, for $100? No. Ubisoft was being very greedy. But the reason the CEO thinks it flopped in a brand new statement is because of declining interest in the Star Wars franchise. In his own words, quote, Outlaws was released at a time when the brand it belonged to was in choppy waters. So he thinks that because there's an overall downward trend for interest in Star Wars, that's why the game failed. Now, is he wrong? This is a bit tricky because while I generally agree with him that it's definitely one factor, it's certainly not the main one, because the performance of Star Wars games has generally been separate to the performance of movies and shows. So if he's blaming this on the performance of certain Disney Plus shows like maybe The Mandalorian Season 3, The Acolyte, I'd say it's an easy cop-out. It might be part of it. I can definitely say that plenty of fans lost interest because of some of those shows, but it's not the full picture with this game. It doesn't get to the heart of why Star Wars Outlaws wasn't the game that we were promised. I just don't think Outlaws was that appealing, and the proof that it's not entirely down to performance of a franchise overall is that Jedi Fallen Order, Jedi Survivor, and more recently Battlefront 2 have seen huge resurgences in popularity. I'm not saying gamers are entirely out of touch with the rest of the Star Wars brand, but there's not always a direct correlation. Granted, the recent resurgence in Battlefront 2 can in part be attributed to the great success of Andor Season 2. Fans loved it, and being happy with Star Wars being inspired by the universe directly caused gamers to want to immerse themselves in the games they love. So in that sense, I do get it. But it's also worth noting, had Ubisoft treated their gamers better in recent years, and had Outlaws been marketed as a Star Wars game you just didn't want to miss, then I'm sure it would have seen stronger numbers, regardless of how fans felt about the Disney Plus shows. As TheGamer.com writes, Star Wars Outlaws was fun, but generic. Plenty of gamers waited for it to go on sale and I can't really blame them. You know, if you're talking about 5 or 10 years ago, this game would have been a guaranteed smash hit. Ubisoft was one of the hottest developers in the world, churning out games that continue to perfect the open world formula it created, and everyone seemed to be following. Add in the unsinkable ship of Star Wars, and you have the recipe for a smash hit. The anticipation, just before The Last Jedi, oh my goodness, Star Wars Outlaws would have been the biggest game of the year. The first open world game in everyone's favourite universe, made by the kings of open world games at the time. Everyone would have been there day one. But a decade on, a lot has changed. The crown has rusted, the ship has sunk. Ubisoft has kept doing the same old thing while its peers have surpassed it. And Star Wars in many ways has been milked dry. People talk about behind the scenes politics and all of that kind of thing, but I don't know if that was the leading cause of why most gamers just said, nah, not interested. But Star Wars Outlaws was a real turning point for Star Wars games. It didn't help that around the same time this game dropped, it was announced the third and final Jedi game was going to be delayed, so it gave Star Wars gamers very little to look forward to. Of course, we now know Zero Company is coming soon. That seems like it might be pretty fun by Respawn, a Star Wars strategy game that incorporates clones, droids, Jedi, bounty hunters, smugglers, even Bo-Katan and the Mandalorians. The KOTOR remake is still on ice, but the one I'm really looking forward to is the High Republic action-adventure by Quantic Dream, Star Wars Eclipse. While there has certainly been mixed messaging from the French studio since the game was first announced, as of 11 months ago, they have made remarkable progress in terms of gameplay, hiring voice actors, and this might be one of the best High Republic stories to date. It might be Lucasfilm's best chance of getting your average, casual Star Wars gamer into this time period. Some of the new concept art is really awesome. It shows the game is taking itself way more seriously than The Acolyte. Sorry to always bring it back to that show, but it's exciting to get something different in the High Republic. I love some of the new alien designs, and it also has a prequels aesthetic to it. So Star Wars gaming is in a really weird place, because while Battlefront 2 is seeing soaring numbers, EA have said they don't think a third one is coming anytime soon. But now let's bring in our good friend, Star Force 1. What do you make of all of this news?
I agree. So I agree with both of you. I agree with him and you. Basically, yes, Star Wars is in a terrible state. That stopped people from giving it a look. And then the people who did give it a look were met with a terrible, honestly, a pretty bad experience. For the first few days that it came out, I remember they had massive performance issues, massive bugs. They had to do like a day one patch just to get it into a workable state. So that's already unacceptable when you're paying that much money for a game. I don't know how much it was in the UK, but it was like $70 or something here. It's insane. You're paying that and you're barely getting anything in the game.
I think the premise was really good. It's an adventure set between the original trilogy, and it was between episodes 5 and 6. There were lots of cool characters, cool Easter eggs, there was Jabba the Hutt. They tried to connect this in a way to the Kira trilogy of comics. But for me, there was just not enough there to make this a memorable game. I know very few people who completed it, or went back to it. And the character herself wasn't exactly groundbreaking. She was supposed to be like a female Han Solo, but not as cool. And they didn't do anything more with that archetype.
Based on the clothing they gave her, based on the appearance they gave her, that's obviously what they were going for. And it just plays into all the stereotypes that have plagued Star Wars for the longest time, even if you don't agree with the criticisms. And it just gives that vibe to people looking from the outside.
The whole vibe of this character is one which Disney Star Wars has copied and pasted 5 times.
Exactly. And I don't know who's in charge. I don't know if it's a directive from Lucasfilm Games, because we know they formed a game, their own game branch, just to oversee all the games and have a cohesive story unit. The art direction was not it was not on point for that, for the main character. Just to make it even worse, you were not even getting a complete game on release if you bought that. You were getting a buggy mess. You had to wait for a day one patch. And I'm pretty sure it wasn't even day one. It came a week later, where the game was actually in a playable state. So never pre-order games, guys.
In terms of the future of Star Wars gaming, there is a lot to look forward to. I pray the third Jedi installment is everything we hope it is, and I'm hoping it propels Cal Kestis into live action. Zero Company could be a great strategy game, but there are those who worry about it, because in other recent gaming news, Star Wars Hunters announced a permanent shutdown just 9 months after full launch. Nonetheless, its publisher insists the game was not a flop, but Star Wars fans feel very differently about it. It was a game with so much promise and potential. The game's microtransactions, underwhelming progression systems, and lack of originality were all prominent criticisms the day of launch. A year later, and they've announced its servers will be shutting down this coming October. And while it does seem like a really big flop, Lucasfilm should learn from it. The character designs were pretty badass, and its unspecified time period between episodes 6 and 7 was also very promising. I know I've been saying this for years, but we really need a Mandoverse game, especially with The Mandalorian and Grogu coming up.